join me. Yeah. All righty. Just have a seat, sit together. Hey, you know what? Test our humility. You can sit wherever you want. You know how that usually works, the chairs. You're like, oh, that's the pastor's chair. But you can sit wherever you want today. All right. You can put it in the middle. I'll sit by her. And I'm going to put my thing here. And so we're going to get started. And I'm just going to ask that we do our introduction. And not only that we do our introduction, but that you kind of give us a little background information about your family and your marriage and your family composition.
Hello? All right, cool. Hi, my name is Jamel Yergin, and this is my husband, James Yergin. We have been a blended family for 8 years now. We just actually made 8 years of marriage on the 19th of this month, so just a couple days ago. So, I was previously married, and I came into our relationship with a 2-year-old daughter, and then together we have a 2-year-old daughter, and well, my daughter now, she's 13, and then we have a 2-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. So we are a very active family with a teenager, a toddler, and an infant. But through God, we are making it every day.
Hello. Oh, hello. All right, cool. All right, hello. All right, how's everybody doing? My name is James Yergin, as she said. We are coming from the city of Hesperia, California, and like she pretty much went through the history. I was blessed to be a father, and a father figure from the start of our relationship. Even though we've been married for 8 years, I met her daughter, or our daughter, Zaria, when she was 2 years old. And while she was dating, that was the main focus, to make sure that I did the best that I could to be there and be a representation of who I can be. And so it was, it's still a joy to be a part of a blended family, even now. So.
All righty, all righty. So let me preface this for you. It's not Bible class. It's not. You're going to have to condense it for the folks real quick. I'll let you go. And I have to give him a signal because he is very transparent. So if you guys see me going like that, it's personal. Okay, go ahead, honey.
Shannon Flakes. We've been married for 32 years. We have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. We are a blended family. We have been that way for 32 years. 35 years. 35 years. But we are not, I don't look at it as, even though the subject is blended, I don't count it as blended. I look at it as we are one. And so our family dynamics are very, very single in the aspect of who we are and our roles and our responsibilities in this family. And so I'm just delighted to be here.
All righty, and I am Elisa, his other half, as I already introduced myself. I am the one who came to our marriage with children, and we met when our children were 2 and 6 months, and we have blended and just kind of became one ever since. And I just want to tell you guys one story of our oneness so you could get the picture. I want you to vision this. It's Mother's Day. Our daughter tells her dad, she says, "What'd you get me for Mother's Day?" He said, "I gave you life." She said, "No, what else? What else?" So that's how blended we are. Yeah, our oldest daughter, which is part of our blended family. Yeah, and we're blended so much. I tell this story because it's true. One night we were doing a program at our church, and I said, we need to find a blended couple so that they could talk about blended families, but I don't know anybody. I said, I went to bed that night. God will let you do what you do. I went to bed that night, and I prayed, and I said, Lord, we need a blended family. Show me someone we could use for a blended family. I woke up the next morning still praying, and then I was like, we're a blended family. We can do this, honey, we can do this. So that just gives you a little bit of our insight there, and no one ever can tell, and we've actually even done a legal adoption, but we're just one. But we have a heart for this particular subject because although we're a blended family, my husband is a part of a blended family as well. So we have had experiences from both sides. And so before we get started, I just wanted to kind of give you guys that backdrop. And this is a conversation that is happening in the church. It's happening in the world. 50% of people are getting a divorce. And among African Americans, we're the least likely to be married. So that doesn't mean that we're the least likely to have children. It just means that we'll most likely enter into a marriage with children. And so I think we need to learn how to do this. I think we need to learn how to honor this and bring integrity and dignity to it. We see in the Bible, Joseph himself was not the biological father of Jesus, but he was able to father him. So it can be done, and we are grafted in. As believers, we have been grafted in, so we know we have been adopted and we have been grafted in, so we can have that experience and we can teach people so that they can have a more successful experience. Because I invited them, you all, because we did it a long time ago, and people look at us like, that was something in the water back then. So I wanted to, get modern day to see the success and what's going on so that you all have two examples and two stories and two experiences so that it can be well-rounded. Yeah, so we're going to get started. I'll let you go ahead with our statistics. I don't know if you have your glasses, sir. Are you challenged? We're improvising because something we couldn't put our PowerPoint on, but hey, this is live. This is in living color.
Okay, 50% of marriages end in divorce. 60 to 67% of second marriages end in divorce. 40% of families in the United States are blended. 60 to 70% of marriages with children from previous marriages fail. September 16th, this is from the National Step Families. September 16th is considered as the National Step Family Day.
Did you all know that? It is so prevalent that they've given a day. September the 16th is National Step Family Day. And as he read that one statistics, I don't know if you guys were familiar with that, but 60 to 70% of marriages with children from previous marriages fail. How many of you all are in a blended family out there? One, thank God that you're on the battlefield still, because, it's a lot of work. It's hard. Marriage is a whole ministry full of benefits, but full of work. And then when you add the pressure of coming from a relationship that didn't make it, that makes it even more difficult. It's even more work. Right. My son, well, I won't give you that example, what he said one day in private to me about working. But, so yeah, you guys are courageous. You're courageous, and it takes courage. And so this conversation is just about bringing light and attention to how difficult it is, what the nuances are, and where you can begin. We're just starting the conversation because this is an ongoing conversation, but I really wanted to bring attention to the fact that you just can't hop in and feel like, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, this is my fantasy family. I'm getting ready to have it, and we're going to live happily ever after. Right? So that's why it's so important. We
So
wanted to make sure.
if I put some context on it and the different scenarios that have transpired, when you deal with a divorce and the different the nuances of it, is that one thing about divorce, it can be traumatizing, not just for the person, but we also have to consider the children. And I think that what transpires is that oftentimes we as adults can get over it, but we are left with this impact on children. And that is a factor because we as adults, we can push things down, redirect our thought process, and change our mindset. But it's very difficult for a child to flip a switch, especially when you have the impact of that parent is still alive, that the child is still interacting with the parent, and so that there lies the challenge that is on the forefront of the situation.
And even before we delve into what it looks like in children and what it looks like in adults, it's important to acknowledge that something is broken. Frederick talked about how sometimes we're excellent at repressing and not dealing with our emotions. So we can, have a divorce party or we can have a breakup and, especially on Facebook now, we'll say, God has more for me and I'm going to another level and this is the best. And so we're quick to dismiss our pain. And we won't even acknowledge the fact that something is over, something is, and the word broken can be synonymous with disconnected. And as much as we don't like to say that because we want to feel whole, we want to feel like, I'm good. How are you doing? I'm good. God has something for me anyways. This wasn't, if he was my husband, he would have stayed. Or if she was my wife, she would have stayed. Or in worst case, even if there is a death, we expect people to spiritual bypass and say, oh, this is just God's will, and so you don't have to feel the brokenness of it. If you don't allow yourself to identify that there's a problem, then you will never be able to find a solution. So are y'all comfortable with just saying, like, whether it was a relationship where children were in, and maybe you weren't married, when it ended, something broke. Something broke. I don't know why we feel like we have to be so resilient, but can we just be honest and say something broke, something hurt? I'm not the same because of this separation, good or bad. Sometimes I'm not the same, good, but sometimes not the same bad. So now that we've just allowed ourselves permission to acknowledge the brokenness, which is significant, life-altering, depending on how it was broken, like I said, through death or through you never was married and you hoped to get married, but now you're in another relationship or there was a divorce, you're left with a fragmented piece of yourself. And see, in this beautiful slide, it would have shown some broken glass. You see that though, huh? You see that? All right, so let's start with the children first as you begin. And my husband is a child advocate, you all, so I think that's why he jumped on that. And it does say broken children, but he's a child advocate. And
I just interject. The reason why the challenge is I've had that experience personally. Sometimes it's easy to dismiss the child's feelings by the person just saying, get over it, and just to move past it. How come you're not over it yet? Well, here's the challenge, is that there's a study that the mother establishes trust with the child. The child has been in the mother's womb, been with the child, and as time goes on, that child has built up trust based on these two parties that have come together. if the relationship doesn't work and now the persons are ready to move on and they get remarried, or let's say they never been married but the child is still having interaction with the parent. The challenge is an adult can somewhat move on, but a child is stuck in that scenario. And what we'll do is we'll easily disrespect the child or disregard the child's feelings. That child still has a mother and that child still has a father. And those biological parents are still meaningful to that child. As an adult, it's easy for us to just dismiss that and say, get over it, because I can get over it. My child is going to take that much more process to get up that hill, around that hill, and dealing with, or even tunneling through that mountain. It was challenging for me when I was coming up. It was challenging for me, and what I did was I just disengaged. I did what I wanted to do, and what happened is I became more defiant, because you are forcing me into a position that I really didn't have any say-so in the matter in the first place. And so because I didn't have a say-so, you're telling me that I just get over it, just move on, I don't know how long. Well, she's going to give you some statistics on how long it actually takes for a person to actually get over that process.
Right, and you mean to blend? How long it takes to
blend,
blend a family? And yeah, we'll talk about it in depth, but just because, you brought that up, sometimes we think it's instantaneously, but it's not. It's at least 5 to 7 years, right? And Ron Deal talks about, he's a blended family spokesperson, and he talks about how the difference is in the blending process is more like a crock pot. If you want to eat, you're not going to use a crock pot. You're going to use the microwave. Our society today, we're more microwave minded. We want to be married tomorrow, and we want our kids to fall in line tomorrow. But children have a more difficult time, and the younger you are, it is more easy, but as you progress in age, it becomes more difficult for various reasons, because children don't have the ability cognitively to switch on their minds on and off and understand complex emotions of beginning and ending, right? So we're asking them to do something that's just not cognitively possible. And so as a result, they move a little slower, right? Has that been your all's experience?
Yes.
Most definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I can say that there was a huge difference from my daughter Zaria when she was 2 in processing like my involvement in her life, versus now, like that 7 to 8 year time frame. It's real. I can say that it's real. Like being there when she's a young child, and that she's like just happy that someone's playing with her. Right, and that engagement, and hey, he said do this, that's fine. It's a lot easier then versus like she's 13 and she's ready to express herself and do dances and all of that. I'm like, I really don't agree with like you said, a crock pot, playing the long game. And being in it to say, like, I could go and address this and tear this all down, but now I have to, like, see what's best for you, and for your way to process things. So it's real that it does take some time, and it's different.
Right. And so in looking at that, too, with children, just everything about the broken child, it's going to look differently, and we're going to talk about that when we talk about the stages of grief. But I just wanted us to begin to acknowledge that. Sometimes we don't understand the dialectic, that it's good and it's bad. It feels good and it hurts. Because yes, we may have more money. Yes, my mom may have a companion or my dad may have a companion. But there's also things that I'm missing. And so holding space for that takes adults a long time. And that's why we just kind of numb, or we deny, or we stay in denial about our emotions, because we don't want to deal with the brokenness in ourselves. And children need good models.
Yeah.
They need space to be able to say their heart is broken, right? And so with adults who are, wrong way. With adults who have been in a divorce or in a broken relationship with someone and they have children now, that looks different. We can mask that a little better, but if you have good eyes, you can identify it, but it's really covert. But a lot of people have rejection trauma and abandonment trauma, and they're not even aware of it. And some of these things happened in their family of origin. And so by the time you get in a relationships, like I said, you all, they're beautiful, but boy, they can touch some very sensitive parts of our lives that we haven't dealt with.
Can I say this? I heard one of my mentors. I was listening. He was talking about a divorce. The divorce in the Hebrew, in the Greek, is apostation, and it means to defect. Defect in the military term, the result of a defection is death. So what transpires in a divorce relationship is that you are experiencing, every time you see that person, is death. So if adults are having a problem and they're broken and dealing with that over and over, if I see that person at the supermarket, I'm experiencing death. Oh, there he go, or there she goes. It's the experience of death. The aspect of a child experiencing that as an adult, it's easy for an adult to get past that and block and put some blockers. But what happens to the child that has to deal with that grief of a loss that has actually transpired? And then to reacclimate themselves to a new environment. And how do you nurture, and how do you, it's good that he said it's about the long game. It's really about the long game. One thing I did when my children were young is I tried to befriend their father. And because I understood that this is a process, and I'm not going to take that person, and I can't step in that person's role. I'll let my actions speak louder than me saying, I'm Ganga Din, and you call me daddy. And I think that's what transpired in the Black American culture, is that we want people to automatically, that's your daddy, and you're going to call him daddy. I didn't start off that way. I want you to be comfortable with who I am, and I'm going to let my responsibility. I went and bought diapers. I got up when they were sick. I made them food. I did things to show them what a father is supposed to do.
Right. But when you're dealing with when you're dealing with someone, though, with rejection trauma or abandonment trauma, it's very important that they get approval. Because you can take it personal. If you're buying stuff for these kids and you're, cooking, if you're the woman and you're trying, you're, buying those Jordans and you're buying these iPhones and you're taking people to practice and you're doing all these things and they're just not feeling it. If you have some brokenness as an adult in a blended family, then you're going to be so highly sensitive that you're going to have to be catered to. And it's going to make the blending process very uncomfortable. So it takes awareness, because adults can complicate this. If you're not dealing with your rejection, how does it make you feel? Or if you feel left out, or if you're jealous, because you can literally be jealous of the relationship that the family members have that you don't have yet because you haven't put that time in. You feel left out because that's a trauma response as well, belonging. So if you feel that you're not belonging, that can trigger a response.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely. Oh, go ahead.
And even for us, James was the same way as you were saying, Pastor Flakes. Like, it wasn't a pressure to having Zara call him dad, or we're this one happy family. I was the one pushing away, like, her father doesn't want to be involved like that. And he was like, no, that's her dad. And he's on the side trying to have conversations with him. And I was just like, you don't have to do all that. This dude is not trying to be there. Let it go. And he's like, no, but that's her father. And he needs to have that relationship with her. Still to this day, I haven't changed my phone number from over 14, 15 years ago to leave that door open if he wanted to call my daughter.
Wow.
And that had a lot to do with him saying, leave that communication, because I was ready to cut it off. Like, it's done. We're over. We're divorced. I'm good. She's good. We don't need you. And he said, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean I can't do that? And he really was like, no, we can't take that from Zara. What her relationship is, she has other siblings on her father's side, and we've taken her to meet up with them, spend time with her nieces. Like, her siblings are a lot older than her, so they have children. So she has nieces and nephews we've taken her to go be with. She talks to her grandmother on that side and cousins, but has not seen her biological father since she was 6 years old. So it's just a lot of different dynamics, but he never forced himself on her or myself to be that parent. It was all showing in actions. Lived over an hour away from us and would come to dance recitals, come to dance practice, and just doing those things. So you saying that, he was the exact same way. I was the one pushing back, and he
Right.
was continuously proving himself.
Right. And
If
can I say this?
Go ahead.
too,
I was going to
Prophet?
say, go ahead.
I mean, honey, our story is similar in that I was just, I just was neutral. I didn't have any emotion towards it. But to speak to the credit of the work that he's done to maintain relationships, their biological grandmother is a member of our church. And at one point, when he was living, their biological father came to our church, got in our prayer line, and got prayer. So it's just the things that happened to us. We were reality TV before reality TV. No, we really were. And I would say, honey, nobody would believe this. And he was like, no, we would never do a reality show. I was like, okay. But that speaks to it, that we were not shutting the door. But you can't do that if you are so impaired in your brokenness. And there's no problem. I mean, we're not saying that you have to be perfect coming into a blended family, but you have to be willing to recognize, do I have rejection trauma? Do I have abandonment trauma? Because that's going to impact how I blend.
If you begin, one thing, now I do know, and I'm not oblivious, that you're going to have different responses at different ages. I know you're not going to have the same response as a 2-year-old from a 13-year-old to a 16-year-old, and I want to make that very clear. But when it becomes, those are your kids, right, and then you tap into that rejection, and now it becomes there's only should be one vision for that house, because if you have two visions, it will end up in division. And so, and the division will end up in the divorce. And so the reality is that you have to understand that person that I have bonded with, that I have cut covenant with, it's now how do we assure, or how do we make this house work? How do we bring this all in together with still having dignity and respect for each and every person that's in this house? Right. And so I think that it starts really with the foundation, which is the father who establishes the foundation for the house. How do we keep this intact? Because if you got married, your intention is not to go anywhere. Right. Your intention is to cause this thing to work. And so if you have thin skin, that may not be the person